Have you ever felt tired, even when you haven't really done anything physically exhausting? Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, the kind that sits quietly in your chest, in your thoughts, in that place where you feel like you're always on, always responding, always producing, always carrying something. We live in a world that moves fast. It rewards productivity. It praises independence. It quietly teaches us that the more we can handle alone, the stronger we must be. And somewhere along the way, many of us started believing that rest is something you earn. You rest after everything is finished. You rest when you've proven yourself. You rest when you deserve it. But what if that was never the design? What if rest wasn't a reward for doing enough, but something built into being human? Genesis chapter 1 showed us the big picture of creation. Light, sky, land, oceans, living creatures. Genesis chapter 2 slows everything down. It zooms in. And what we see isn't just power, we see closeness. Let's read a short portion together. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Genesis 2:2, NIV. And a little later in the same chapter, it is not good for the man to be alone. Genesis 2:18, NIV. Those two statements might seem simple, but they reshape everything: rest and relationship. In Genesis 2, we see something beautiful. Humanity is formed from dust, not spoken into existence like the rest of creation, but formed, shaped. And then something even more personal happens. God breathes life into the man. That detail is easy to read past, but it matters. There is closeness there, intentionality, care. Humanity isn't mass-produced. It's personally formed. And then, after everything is created, God rests. Not because he's tired, not because he ran out of energy, but because completion deserves stillness. Rest happens before exhaustion ever exists. That means rest was never meant to be an emergency response to burnout. It was part of the rhythm from the beginning. And then comes something even more striking. Up until this point in Scripture, everything has been declared good. Light, good. Land, good. Creatures, good. And then for the first time in the Bible, something is called not good. It is not good for the man to be alone. Before sin, before failure, before brokenness, isolation is declared not good. That tells us something foundational about what it means to be human. We were not created to be self-sufficient. We were not designed to carry everything alone. Relationship wasn't added as a bonus feature. It was essential. And this isn't just about marriage. It's about connection. Connection with God, connection with others, shared purpose. Genesis 2 shows us a picture of wholeness: rest, work, relationship, all existing together before anything was broken. And when you look at our world today, it's hard not to notice how far we've drifted from that rhythm. We treat rest like weakness. We treat independence like strength. We treat busyness like value. But Genesis 2 gently challenges those assumptions. If rest came before exhaustion, then maybe you don't have to collapse before you're allowed to pause. If isolation was not good before sin ever entered the story, then maybe your need for connection isn't a flaw. Maybe it's design. Some of us carry stress silently. We don't ask for help. We don't admit when we're overwhelmed. We don't slow down because slowing down feels irresponsible. But what if rest isn't irresponsibility? What if it's alignment? When you rest, you're not stepping out of purpose. You're stepping into rhythm. And when you reach for connection, you're not failing at independence. You're honoring design. Genesis 2 also reminds us that work itself isn't the enemy. The man is placed in the garden to work it and take care of it. Purpose existed before pressure. Responsibility existed before shame. Work was part of a healthy design, not a punishment. The problem isn't work. The problem is when work becomes identity, when output becomes worth, when we start measuring ourselves by how much we accomplish instead of remembering who we are. Before Adam built anything impressive, before cities, before systems, he was already formed, already valued, already declared good. That truth alone has the power to change how we live, because many of us are still trying to earn something that was given from the beginning. Acceptance, worth, belonging. And then there's relationship. It is not good for the man to be alone. Think about that. The first not good in the Bible isn't about failure. It's about isolation. And that hits close to home in a world where you can be surrounded by people and still feel alone. Maybe you've told yourself you don't need anyone. Maybe it feels safer that way. Maybe independence feels strong. But Genesis 2 says something different. Strength isn't isolation. Strength is connection. Strength is shared life. Strength is vulnerability. And that doesn't mean dependence in an unhealthy way. It means acknowledging that you were designed for community, designed for relationship, designed to be known. So maybe the question this week isn't, how can I do more? Maybe it's, where have I been trying to do everything alone? Where have you treated rest like something you have to earn? Where have you resisted help because you didn't want to seem weak? Where have you equated busyness with value? Genesis 2 invites us back to something simpler. You were formed intentionally. You were given purpose before you proved anything. You were invited into rest before you ever felt tired. And you were created for relationship before you ever felt lonely. Before brokenness enters the story in Genesis 3, we see what was meant to be whole. That matters, because sometimes transformation doesn't start with fixing what's broken. It starts with remembering what was designed. Maybe this week isn't about striving harder. Maybe it's about slowing down enough to realign. Maybe it's about choosing one small act of rest, or reaching out to someone instead of carrying something silently. Maybe it's about letting yourself be human. Genesis 1 showed us intention. Genesis 2 shows us intimacy. Next week, we'll move into Genesis chapter 3. We'll talk about choice, temptation, and what really changes in the garden. But before we talk about what breaks, it's important to understand what was whole. If this slower walk through Scripture is helping you see your life a little differently, I'd love for you to come back next week. And if you want to keep walking through Genesis chapter by chapter, you can subscribe and stay with us. This is the beginning walk, and we're just getting started.